What if the very concept of 1 could simultaneously represent, say, 400? Or what if the act of counting wasn't just about tallying objects?
Hmm,
What if it was a direct, profound participation in the creation of the universe itself?
that's a pretty radical thought.
It is, isn't it? On AI History of Western Philosophy today, we're embarking on a journey that I think will fundamentally challenge how you perceive mathematics, rationality, and, well, maybe even the nature of reality.
Yeah, it's easy to take our own mathematical concepts for granted, isn't it?
Totally. We often treat them as universal, objective truths, almost as if they exist independently, just waiting for us to discover them.
Like Platonic forms floating out there somewhere.
Exactly. But what if that perspective is actually, well, a culturally specific assumption?
Yeah.
Deeply ingrained, yes, but subtly shaping, every facet of our understanding.
Indeed. And that's what we're going to explore. We'll look at how two radically different cultures, one ancient Western, the other a contemporary indigenous society, offer profoundly divergent answers to what seems like a simple question. What is a number?
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, our exploration begins with the Pythagorean school. Their ideas laid much of the philosophical and scientific groundwork for Western thought. Really.
Right, Pythagoras, numbers and triangles.
Numbers, triangles, music, the cosmos,
Yeah.
the whole package. And from there, we'll travel, metaphorically speaking, to Papua New Guinea. We'll immerse ourselves in the fascinating Iqwaye counting system, thanks to the meticulous documentation by anthropologist Jadran Mimica.
So not just different ways to count sheep, then?
Not at all. This isn't merely an anthropological curiosity, though it is fascinating anthropology. It provides a critical lens, a way to scrutinize the very foundations of Western philosophy and scientific thought
Well, so...
by revealing just how contingent its development was, rather than some inevitable march towards truth.
Okay. So the way we think about math wasn't the only way it could have turned out.
Precisely. Get ready to question, well, pretty much everything you thought you knew about numbers.
The Pythagorean cosmos number as transcendent reality.
All right, let's begin our journey in ancient Greece. There was this philosophical revolution that really reshaped Western thought. Before Pythagoras, you had the early Greek philosophers, right? The pre-Socratics.
Thinkers like Thales and Axiomenes.
Yeah, and they were intensely preoccupied with discovering the arche. That's the fundamental first principle, the ultimate underlying reality everything came from.
Exactly. Thales famously proposed water, and Axiomenes suggested air. They were all searching for a material substance, something tangible, to explain the sheer diversity of the world.
But then came Pythagoras of Samos and his followers, the Pythagorean Brotherhood.
And they initiated a monumental shift, a really radical one.
What did they propose?
They declared that the arche wasn't material at all. It wasn't water or air or anything you could touch. It was an abstract principle of measure and proportion.
So, number.
In a single word, number.
Okay, but what did that actually mean? Was it just about measuring things?
No, it went much deeper. This wasn't just about quantification. When the Pythagoreans asserted that things are number or resemble number, they were making a profound ontological claim.
Ontological, meaning about the nature of being.
Precisely. They believed the entire universe, at its most fundamental level, was intrinsically governed by arithmetic and geometric relationships. All the qualitative differences we perceive, what makes a horse and not a human.
Yeah.
They thought those could ultimately be reduced to quantitative mathematical distinctions.
Yeah.
They even visualized this, arranging pebbles into patterns to represent different things.
Wow. So even abstract concepts.
Absolutely. They assigned numbers to abstract concepts, too. Justice, for instance, was equated with the number 4.
Why 4?
Because 4 is a perfect square, 2 by 2, symbolizing balance, order, maybe even retribution, an equal measure for measure. Marriage was 5.
Any reason for that?
Well, 5 is the union of 2, which they saw as the first female number, and 3 the first male number. So 2 plus 3 equals 5, the joining of female and male.
Okay, that's quite something. So this was a huge leap from how math was used before, right? Like in Egypt or Mesopotamia.
A massive leap. Those earlier civilizations certainly used mathematics, very sophisticated mathematics in some cases, but primarily for practical applications.
Like building pyramids or tracking taxes.
Exactly. Calculating land for agriculture, managing wages, working out brewing recipes. Very practical stuff. The Pythagoreans were arguably the first to liberate mathematics from these purely utilitarian constraints.
So they saw it as more than just a tool.
Much more. They transformed it into a way of comprehending the fundamental nature of reality itself. They believed they were deciphering a divine cosmic code, unlocking the universe's deepest, most sacred mysteries.
So math became
Hmm.
a spiritual quest.
You could definitely say that. It ascended to become a metaphysical quest, a path to understanding the divine mind, if you will. And this Pythagorean revolution, it's fascinating to trace the lineage, directly gave rise to the foundational assumptions of what we now call mathematical Platonism.
Okay, Platonism, like Plato, the philosopher.
Exactly. Plato was heavily influenced by Pythagorean ideas. The core tenet here is the assertion of a two-tiered reality.
Two tiers, how does that work?
Well, on one level, there's the world we live in, right? The imperfect, ever-changing, tangible world accessible through our senses, our everyday reality full of flux and decay.
Got it, the messy world.
The messy world, exactly. But the Pythagoreans, and later Plato, amplified this profoundly, posited a second, superior tier, a perfect, eternal, and invisible realm.
Invisible. What's in this realm?
Numbers and mathematical forms, pure geometric shapes, perfect ratios. This realm, they believed, couldn't be grasped by our senses. It could only be apprehended by pure reason, by the intellect.
Ah, so the mind connects to this higher reality.
That's the idea. And the relationship between these two tiers is crucial. The physical world, the one we inhabit, is conceived as merely an imperfect reflection, a kind of shadow or echo of this higher, unchanging mathematical reality.
Like the shadows on the wall in Plato's cave allegory.
Precisely that kind of idea. It implies that mathematical entities themselves, numbers, ratios, geometric forms, aren't things we invent.
They're discovered.
Yes, they are objective, independent realities. They exist outside of space, outside of time, outside of the human mind. They simply are, waiting for us to discover them through reason.
That's a huge claim. And it became really influential in the West.
Deeply ingrained. The task of the philosopher-mathematician, then, wasn't to invent math, but to discover these pre-existing eternal truths, to uncover the structure of this perfect realm.
And this idea still resonates today, doesn't it? You hear mathematicians talk about the beauty of a theorem as if it was always there.
Absolutely. Many mathematicians, even if they don't explicitly call themselves Platonists, often speak and act as if these mathematical objects have an independent existence. This Pythagorean legacy fundamentally shaped our default understanding of what mathematics is.
Okay, so this commitment to number as the ultimate reality, the archak,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a theory they debated, right? Did they have any proof? Or what they saw as proof?
They did, and it was incredibly powerful for them. They found empirical validation in something deeply human, musical harmony.
Ah, the music connection. I've heard about this.
The story goes that Pythagoras himself discovered that the consonant intervals in music, the pleasant-sounding ones like the octave, the perfect fifth, the perfect fourth, correspond precisely to simple, whole number ratios of vibrating string length.
Like cutting a string in half makes it an octave higher.
Exactly. An octave is a 2.1 ratio, a perfect fifth is 3.2, a perfect fourth is 4.3. Simple, elegant, whole numbers.
So what do they make of that?
It was transformative. It suggested that harmonia, this idea of things fitting together beautifully, wasn't just subjective. It wasn't just something we liked the sound of.
It was objective, built into the universe.
Precisely. It was an objective mathematical property inherent in reality itself. The beautiful sounds were just a manifestation, an audible echo of a deeper underlying mathematical harmony that the intellect could grasp.
Wow, okay. And did they stop at music?
Oh no, they went much further. They extended this principle from the strings of a lyre to the entire cosmos. In fact, the Pythagoreans were among the first to use that word, cosmos.
Which means?
It signifies a beautifully ordered and harmonious whole. It's actually the root of our word cosmetics.
Huh. Never thought of that. So the universe is ordered like music.
That was exactly their belief. They thought the distances between the celestial bodies, Earth, Sun, Moon, the planets they knew, were also governed by these same musical ratios.
Seriously, like cosmic chords.
Yes. And as these heavenly spheres moved in their perfect, mathematically determined orbits, they were thought to produce an inaudible celestial harmony, the legendary music of the spheres.
Inaudible to us mere mortals, I assume.
Inaudible to ordinary people, yes, but perhaps perceptible to a soul purified enough, attuned to this divine cosmic order.
This led to a really integrated worldview, didn't it? Math, beauty, the universe.
Absolutely. A breathtaking fusion of mathematics, aesthetics, and cosmology. For them, beautiful, good, and true were fundamentally linked. The beauty of the cosmos was its mathematical truth and goodness.
And it had a moral dimension, too. You mentioned good versus evil earlier.
Yes, this mathematical order wasn't neutral. They mapped it onto a moral framework through their famous table of 10 opposites.
10 opposites, like what?
Pairs like limit versus unlimited, odd versus even, one versus many, right versus left, male versus female, rest versus motion, straight versus crooked, light versus darkness, good versus evil, and square versus oblong.
Wow. So odd numbers were good.
Generally, yes. Principles associated with limit, odd, and one were linked to order, stability, and goodness. Those associated with the unlimited, even, and many were linked to chaos, change, and perceived badness.
Why odd versus even?
They visualized numbers with pebbles. Odd numbers always form stable, perfect squares when arranged, symbolizing limit, definition, goodness. Even numbers formed oblong rectangles representing the unlimited, the undefined, the less perfect.
So doing math was like ethical training.
In a way, yes. It was a spiritual and ethical discipline, a path to aligning your own soul with the rational, harmonious, good order of the universe. Math wasn't just calculation, it was purification.
They had a symbol for all this.
They did. The master symbol that encapsulated this entire worldview was the tetractys.
The tetractys, what was that?
It's a sacred figure, a triangle made of 10 points arranged in 4 rows. 1 point at the top, then 2 below it, then 3, then 4. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10.
10 points making a triangle. Why was it so important?
10 was considered the perfect number, containing all the fundamental ratios. The tetractys visually represented the generation of reality from number. The single point, the monad 1, represented unity, the start, a geometric point.
Okay.
The 2 points, the dyad 2, represented duality, otherness, a line, 1D. The 3 points, the triad 3, harmony, and defined a plane, 2D.
And the 4 points.
The tetrad 4 represented the cosmos itself, the first solid. A tetrahedron needs 4 points, defining 3D space. This progression mirrored the creation of dimensions, and they mapped these numbers onto everything: elements, seasons, musical ratios.
The tetractys was like a miniature model of their universe.
Exactly, a powerful microcosm. It was so sacred they swore oaths upon it. It held the key to their entire harmonious system. It was indeed an incredibly elegant and all-encompassing system, beautiful even, but it was built on a very specific, deeply held belief, an axiom, really.
Which was?
The belief that the entire universe is commensurable.
Commensurable.
Meaning that all relationships, all magnitudes, everything, could ultimately be expressed as ratios of whole numbers, integers, like the 2.1 of the octave or the 3.2 of the fifth.
So everything fits together neatly in whole number ratios.
That was the core belief. It gave their system its power, its harmony, its aesthetic appeal. But this very foundation, this bedrock belief, was destined to be shattered from within.
Oh.
By arguably the Pythagoreans' greatest yet most devastating mathematical discovery, the existence of irrational numbers.
Irrational numbers, like pi. Or the square root of 2.
Exactly like the square root of 2. This likely emerged when they applied their own famous theorem, the Pythagorean theorem, to something simple, like the diagonal of a unit square.
A square with sides of length 1. The diagonal is the square root of 1 squared plus 1 squared. So the square root of 2.
Precisely. And they discovered, to their horror, that the square root of 2 cannot be expressed as a ratio of 2 whole numbers. No matter how hard you try, you can't find 2 integers, p and q, such that pq equals the square root of 2.
So it didn't fit their system.
It didn't just not fit, it was a profound metaphysical catastrophe. The term they used for it, allogon, tells you everything.
Allogon.
It means without ratio, but it also means without logos, without reason, without sense, unspeakable, irrational. It struck at the very heart of their rationally ordered universe.
It was like finding a fundamental flaw in the fabric of reality.
Exactly. A deep dissonance in the cosmic harmony they cherished. It exposed their core belief, the absolute foundation of their philosophy, their religion, their science, as incomplete, or maybe even just plain wrong.
Wow. That must have been a huge crisis.
A massive intellectual and spiritual crisis. And it reveals something crucial, doesn't it?
What's that?
It shows how what counts as a mathematical truth or a problem really depends on the underlying worldview, the axioms you start with.
Right. For them, it was a catastrophe because their whole system relied on whole number ratios.
Precisely. For a different mathematical system, the square root of 2 might just be another number. Interesting, perhaps, but not world-shattering. For the Pythagoreans, it was devastating because it violated their fundamental vision of cosmic order.
Is that where the stories come from about them trying to suppress it?
Legend holds they were so distressed they tried to keep it secret. There's even a story, probably apocryphal but telling, that they drowned the disciple Hippasos of Metapontum in the sea for leaking this unspeakable truth to outsiders.
Yikes. Whether true or not, it shows how high the stakes were for them.
It absolutely does. It powerfully demonstrates that their mathematics was never value neutral. It wasn't just abstract calculation. It was deeply invested in maintaining a specific, aesthetically pleasing, morally charged vision of reality.
So the irrational number crisis is like the first big piece of evidence for the contingency of mathematical thought, that it didn't have to go down this path.
That's a great way to put it. It showed their path was shaped by their philosophical commitments, and those commitments created their own specific crises. As we'll see, a very different numerical system might not even notice such a problem.
The Iqwaye reality number is embodied mythopoeia.
That point about contingency is fascinating. Okay, so now let's jump halfway across the world, 2.5 millennia later, to a place where numbers are conceived in a radically different way. Where are we headed?
We're focusing on Papua New Guinea, specifically the Iqwaye people. They're a community of about 2,500 individuals, part of the Iqwaye tribe, living in the pretty remote, mountainous interior of Morobe province.
Papua New Guinea, incredibly diverse place, right? Linguistically and culturally.
Extraordinarily so. Over 800 distinct languages spoken there. This incredible diversity is largely due to the rugged, mountainous geography. It historically fostered many small, isolated communities.
Creating little pockets of unique culture.
Exactly. It led to a mosaic of human intellectual experimentation, what you might call unique microcosms of knowledge and social organization.
Which is a big contrast to the ancient Mediterranean.
A huge contrast. The Mediterranean world of the Pythagoreans was a bustling hub of empires, trade routes, constant interaction. That interconnectedness likely pushed Greek thinkers towards seeking universal, abstract principles, ideas that could travel, that weren't tied to one specific place or custom.
So maybe the very idea of universal abstract math is partly a product of that kind of interconnected geography.
It's a compelling thought. Conversely, an embodied, localized mathematics, like the Iqwaye system, might be a more natural fit for a fragmented, insular landscape where communities develop more independently.
Now, the anthropologist who studied this, Jadran Mimica, it's important to frame his work correctly, isn't it, given the history of anthropology?
Yes, definitely. Anthropology in that region, unfortunately, sometimes got entangled with colonial prejudices, labeling societies as primitive. Mimica's work strongly counters that. He approaches the Iqwaye system not as some quaint curiosity, but as a complex, sophisticated, and coherent intellectual achievement in its own right.
And this culture is facing challenges now.
It is. Like many indigenous cultures, traditional practices are eroding as Western influences money from coffee, cash cropping, replacing traditional shell currency. Western education become more dominant. Mimica was actually concerned about this cultural impoverishment and amnesia and hoped his work could help integrate indigenous mathematical knowledge into education to preserve it.
How did the Iqwaye think about quantity itself? Is it like our focus on abstract accuracy?
Not really. Mimica notes they don't prioritize numerical efficiency and accuracy per se in the way we often do. For them, quantitative exactness is tied up with a qualitative outlook. It relates to the concrete nature of the counting, the embodied experience. Even exchange isn't just abstract value. It's felt, sometimes described as a flow of bodily fluids, specifically semen. They value the specific qualities of things, worn banknotes versus new ones, individual shells over abstract equivalents. And that cultural context, that focus on the concrete and embodied, is absolutely crucial for understanding their numerical philosophy. Mimica's central argument, his big thesis, is that the Iqwaye counting system and their very concept of number aren't just practical tools.
Okay, what are they then?
He argues they are deeply embedded in and constituted by their mythopoeic activity of consciousness.
Mythopoeic, meaning myth-making.
Yes, myth-making consciousness. But he argues this isn't an illusion or irrationality. He sees it as the truth of themselves and their world, a fundamental way of being conscious that actively structures their reality.
So how does the counting system actually work? You mentioned it's embodied.
Profoundly so. It's deictic, meaning it relies on pointing and context, and it's literally performed on the human body. They use digits up to 20, all the fingers and all the toes.
Okay, fingers and toes. We do that sometimes.
But for them, it's fundamental. And these body parts aren't just abstract markers, like beads on an abacus. Mimica considers them proper number objects. The system can even extend to counting on other people's bodies, making it inherently communal and relational.
Wow. So what are the actual number words?
This is striking. There are only two proper numerals. One, which is Ungwanangi, and two, Hulaka,
Only 1 and 2. How do they get to 3?
additively. 3 is just 2 plus 1. 4 is 2 plus 2. All other numbers up to 20 are combinations of 1 and 2, often linked to specific body parts.
What about 5 and 10?
The words for 5, Holi Embu, literally means hand, and 10, Holi Kaplako, means two hands. They function as numerals, but their names point right back to the body. There's an underlying binary structure, too, in how they might touch fingers. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
I mean, the gestures are important.
Crucial. When counting, fingers aren't seen as separate units you just tick off. They are conjoined, each merging into a unity with the ones preceding it.
Merging into a unity.
Right.
How so?
For example, the number 5 isn't just the fifth finger. It's represented by making a fist, fingers closed. It signifies a self-centered, closed unity, a fusion of the individual elements into a whole hand.
Right, that's different. So how do they count beyond 20?
This is where it gets really fascinating. The system is iterative and recursive. Once you've counted all 20 digits, fingers, and toes, that completion constitutes one person. This one person becomes a new, higher-order unit.
A base unit of 20, essentially.
Exactly. To count higher numbers, they reuse the original body parts, the digits 1 through 20, but now each digit signifies a multiple of this base unit of 20.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Counting to, say, the third finger in the second iteration, the second person, doesn't mean just 3. Depending on the context, it could mean 3 times 20, which is 60. Or it might even be conceptualized as 3 persons.
Right. And does it go higher?
It does. The next major iteration involves a posture, a crouching man with fingers touching toes. In this cycle, the digits 1 through 20 are used again, but this time they count off groups of 20 persons.
So,
20 times 20.
exactly. Multiples of 20 squared, which is 400.
400, that was the number you mentioned at the start. How is 400 also 1?
This is profound. The concept of 400 is expressed verbally something like, as this many persons as me, this one person the speaker with all their legs and hands. Mimica argues this shows an equivalence. 400, 20 by 20, is conceptually equivalent to one person completing the next cycle. The whole is equivalent to its part.
Multiplicity into singularity.
Yes, it's a process of totalization, transforming multiplicity into singularity, or of the many into oneness. Each completed cycle, whether it's 20 or 400, is a totalization. And how do they see this mathematical progression, like 20, then 20 squared, then 20 cubed?
Symbolically, they understand this exponentiation, the base multiplying itself as analogous to sexual reproduction. The body, meaning the base unit of 20, reproduces itself through identification with its parts, the individual digits.
So counting is like procreation.
In a symbolic sense, yes. The very structure of their number system mirrors generative life processes, which means for the Iqwaye, a number isn't a static thing like a Pythagorean form.
It's an action.
It's an act. The physical gesture, the pointing, the crouching, it's a performative event created right there in the moment, and its meaning is totally context-dependent. The same gesture for 5 in the first cycle means 100, 5 by 20 in the second cycle.
Okay. So infinity. How does that fit in? The Greeks had issues with infinity.
For the Iqwaye, it seems to be different. Mimica suggests their system provides a lived intimation of infinity, not as an abstract concept that causes philosophical problems, but as a concrete, generative potential.
Generative potential.
Yeah, experienced through the repeatable cyclical processes of the body. You can always start another cycle, count another person. Number isn't out there in some transcendent realm. It's in here, generated from the body and its actions. It's an immanent reality.
Wow. Okay, so this connection between the counting system, the body, and myth, you said it's inseparable.
Utterly inseparable, according to Mimica's analysis. It's not like they have math over here and mythology over there as separate boxes. The system functions as a profound mythopoeia, a myth-making process that structures and expresses their entire understanding of the cosmos.
Can you give a more direct example of the myth connection?
Well, one account explicitly links their counting to the Iqwaye creation myth. The creator god, Almightos, is said to have 5 children. The fingers used for counting literally represent these children.
So counting on your fingers is like reenacting the relationship between the creator and his kids.
Exactly. It becomes a reenactment of primordial relationships. And suddenly, a statement that sounds illogical to us, like 1 can be 1 or 5 can be 1, starts to make sense in that mythic context. A part like one child, or one finger representing that child, can stand for the whole group of 5 children.
Part for whole logic grounded in myth.
Precisely. And Mimica shows how the cosmos itself is conceived through this lens as an embodied, procreative, even sexualized reality. The numerical system isn't just describing it, it's key to its dynamics.
And this logic shows up in daily life too, not just in myths.
Yes, it seems pervasive. He gives examples, sometimes from related cultures in the area. Like in house construction, the main posts might be literally named mother and father, and their arrangement reflects social kinship rules.
So the structure of the house embodies social structure?
Right. Or the way lines are woven in crafts, parallel lines meeting perpendicular lines, might be understood as joining different forms of knowledge or different social groups to create a coherent whole. It's a holistic, embodied logic.
This feels like a massive challenge to Western thought, especially that split between mythos and logos.
It's a radical challenge. That separation mythos as narrative or story versus logos as reason or logic has been pretty foundational in the West since Plato, arguably even since the Pythagoreans themselves.
The Pythagoreans wanted to replace myths with rational number harmonies.
Exactly. Their project, even with its mystical elements, aimed to establish a logos based on number instead of traditional mythology. For the Iqwaye, Mimica argues, this distinction is basically meaningless.
Because their number system is their mythology.
Yes, the numerical system is the mythological system in action. The relations between numbers are the relations between cosmic beings or principles. To count isn't just to quantify, it's to actively participate in the ongoing creation and maintenance of the cosmos as they understand it.
So Mimica's work critiques that whole Western narrative of progress from myth to reason.
Absolutely. He sees it as a powerful critique of Western assumptions about the development of rational thought. The Iqwaye demonstrate a coherent, powerful cosmology that is simultaneously mathematical and mythological.
It shows that the Western path, separating the two, was a choice, not some inevitable destination for human thought.
Precisely. It wasn't an inevitability, it was a specific cultural and historical trajectory. The Iqwaye show a completely different yet equally valid way of integrating number and meaning. And this deep integration with their cosmology is really fleshed out when you look at their creation story, their cosmogony.
Okay, tell me about Omelas, the creator god.
Omelas is described as an autogenial being.
Autogenial, meaning self-generating.
Yeah, exactly. He is simultaneously his own father, his own mother, and his own son, a complete self-contained source. He created himself and the entire cosmos from within his own body.
How is that imagined?
Originally, his body was conceived as sky and earth conjoined, fused together, and it was impregnated with water, which Mimica interprets as signifying semen. Creation involved Omelas severing his own umbilical cord, which is explicitly symbolized as his penis.
He cut off his own penis.
Symbolically, yes. This act led to the separation of sky and earth, and from that separation, the world as they know it, with all its distinct beings, was born.
So creation comes from a kind of self-division.
Yes, and this introduces a fundamental cosmic principle, one-two-ness. Omelas represents the primordial oneness, the original cosmic totality. The world emerges from this oneness through dichotomization, splitting into two.
Like sky and earth.
Sky and earth, yes, the primary, opposing yet complementary dyad. And by implication, this duality generates the entire experiential world of multiple beings. It's fascinating, too, how this primordial oneness, represented by the male Omelas, transforms.
Transforms how?
Mimica suggests it can be seen as a sexual transformation of the male entity into female, with woman becoming ontologically the dyad, emerging from the body of the male one.
So the basic numbers 1 and 2 have this cosmic sexual significance.
They seem to. Ungwanangi, 1, and Hulakwa, 2, carry this covert meaning of male and female sex. Their conjunction, 1 plus 2 equals 3, produces a third unit, mirroring how the combination of male and female creates new life and how cosmic multiplicity arises from the initial unity and duality.
Okay, that connects back to the number system structure. What about infinity in this cosmology?
It's understood very differently from the abstract, potentially problematic infinity of the Greeks. Mimica argues that for the Iqwaye, infinity isn't just an intellectual idea. It's an ontologically real and humanly universal dimension of existence, something felt, an effective quality of consciousness.
How is it felt or represented?
Through their mythic image of the closed universe. This closure isn't the opposite of infinite, it's its implication. It means an indeterminate totality where everything is within. This inside is all there is. Omelas himself, in his self-contained totality, embodies this. His absoluteness is his infinity.
So infinity isn't about endless extension outwards, but about a complete, self-contained, potentially generative totality.
Exactly. And the most primary way this infinity has reality in their world is through the notion of the procreative continuity of the cosmos qua humanity.
Meaning,
Meaning life is seen as fundamentally indestructible. Human sexual reproduction is incessant, continuous, and upon death, the individual doesn't disappear. They return to the primordial oneness of Omelis. Infinity is tied to this endless cycle of life, death, and regeneration.
it's a very different feel from the abstract infinite series in Western math.
Completely different. It leads Mimica to conclude that for the Iqwaye, the being of number is the corporeal man. Every number, every count, every cycle is understood as a unity of human beings.
A unity of human beings.
Yes, who in their numerical determination being counted as one person or part of a larger group are rendered equivalent to the unity of the cosmic being, the creator, Omelis.
So counting people connects them back to the creator.
In a way, yes. And remember that idea of totalization, where 400 equals one person. Mimica takes this further. In this system, the greatest possible number that the Iqwaye counting system can and does reach is 1.
The biggest number is 1, because it
Okay.
represents that ultimate totalization returning to the primordial unity of Omelis.
That seems to be the implication. Their numerical system isn't just counting things. It's a living philosophy, a cosmic dance of creation, procreation, and return to the source, all enacted through the body.
The great divergence challenging Western assumptions.
Okay, let's try to unpack this now. Putting these two worldviews side by side, the Pythagorean and the Iqwaye, it's not just different ways of counting, is it? It feels like fundamentally different ways of building a reality.
Absolutely. The divergence is profound, and it operates on multiple levels.
Let's break it down. First, the very nature of what a number is.
Okay. For the Pythagoreans, a number was fundamentally an abstract, disembodied principle, a pure form residing in some ideal realm grasped by the intellect alone.
Right, not physical.
Whereas for the Iqwaye, a number is concrete. It's an embodied act, a gesture, a physical process pointing to a body part. It's not an abstraction from the world, it's an action within the world.
Which leads to their ontological status, right, where they exist.
Exactly. The Pythagorean number is transcendent. It exists in a separate, perfect, non-physical realm that's considered more real than our physical world.
Above and beyond us.
While the Iqwaye number is completely immanent, it has no existence apart from the lived embodied world, the counting act, the social context. Your cosmos isn't a reflection of some higher numerical plane. The cosmos itself is this embodied, procreative reality understood through the body's actions.
So how do we know these numbers? The way of accessing them must be different too.
Entirely different faculties are involved. The Pythagoreans sought their world of number through theoria, contemplation, pure reason, intellectual insight. Logical proof was the pathway.
Thinking your way to truth.
Whereas the Iqwaye access their numerical reality through participation, you understand it by doing it, performing the counting rituals, engaging in exchange ceremonies, living within the mythology that the numbers enact and embody.
Experience versus abstract thought.
You could put it that way. And maybe the core divergence can be captured by the primary metaphor each system uses.
Okay, what are they?
For the Pythagoreans, the dominant metaphor is cosmic harmony. The universe as a vast musical instrument, numbers as the ratios producing its perfect chords.
The music of the spheres.
Right. For the Iqwaye, the primary metaphor is the human body. The body is the source of the count, the unit of measure, one person, and the very template for understanding the relationships within the cosmos.
Harmony versus the body. That's a stark contrast.
Yeah.
What about the relationship between numbers and reality itself? Do numbers describe reality or create it?
Another crucial distinction. The Pythagoreans believed they were discovering the eternal truths of a pre-existing numerical reality that governed the physical world. Theirs was a project of revelation, uncovering the blueprint.
Finding the rules.
While the Iqwaye seemed to generate their numerical reality through the act of counting, theirs is a project of creation and reenactment. The numbers don't pre-exist the counting, they're brought into being by it.
So for Pythagoreans, order comes from eternal laws out there.
Yes, pre-existing eternal mathematical laws. For the Iqwaye, order seems to stem from the ongoing performance of socially and mythologically constituted relationships. It's generated from within the community and its practices.
Even infinity feels different. A horror for the Greeks, maybe, but generative for the Iqwaye.
It seems so. For Pythagoreans, the infinite, Epir and the unlimited, was often problematic, associated with chaos or just an abstract, endless series. For the Iqwaye, it feels like a concrete, generative potential linked to the body's cycles and reproduction, a lived sense of limitless possibility within a contained system.
And finally, myth. Pythagoras tried to replace it with number logic.
Right, a rationalized mysticism seeking a logos to supplant mythos. For the Iqwaye, its foundational mythopoiesis, number, and myth are completely interwoven, co-creative.
It really is a different way of being, not just thinking.
And this profound divergence, seeing these two systems side by side, gives us the basis for a really powerful critique of how we usually think about mathematics in the West. The assumption that it's universal, inevitable.
Right, which is where this field of ethnomathematics comes in.
Exactly. Ethnomathematics, a term coined by the Brazilian mathematician Uberarden de Ambrosio, directly tackles that core assumption, you could almost call it a taboo, that mathematics is universal, accultural, and value-free.
The Pythagorean legacy, basically.
Largely, yes. Ethnomathematics starts from the opposite premise, that mathematics is fundamentally a cultural product. It's a human construction, shaped by the specific social, historical, environmental context where it develops.
So different cultures, different maths.
Potentially, yes. Or at least different ways of understanding and using what we might call mathematical ideas. The term itself breaks down. Ethno refers to the sociocultural context, mathma to the ways of explaining, understanding, and coping with reality, and ticks to the techniques like counting, measuring, classifying, inferring.
So its mission is to study these different cultural maths.
Yes, to acknowledge they exist, first of all, and then to investigate how different cultural groups actually comprehend and apply mathematical concepts. But it's more than just description.
How so?
It's a significant political and philosophical intervention. Think about it. The dominant Western view of math as the universal standard has historically been used, consciously or not, to devalue the knowledge systems of non-European cultures.
Dismissing them as primitive or pre-logical?
Exactly, or maybe seeing them as just informal steps on the way to real academic mathematics. Ethnomathematics challenges this hierarchy. It argues for validating these diverse mathematical practices on their own terms, within their own contexts.
So the Iqwaye system isn't a failed attempt at Western math.
Not at all. It's a prime example of an ethnomathematical reality. It's successful, internally coherent, and powerful on its own principles, which just happen to be very different from the principles underpinning Western abstraction.
So ethnomathematics gives us the tools to see it as legitimate, challenging Western dominance.
Precisely. It allows us to see the Iqwaye system not as lacking abstraction, but as achieving a different kind of coherence, one grounded in embodiment and myth. It fundamentally challenges the presumed hegemony of the Western mathematical tradition.
Which brings us back to that idea of historical contingency. It feels really important here.
It's crucial. Contingency in the philosophy of history is the idea that things didn't have to turn out the way they did. Historical events aren't predetermined. They depend on specific circumstances, choices, even chance.
And this challenges those neat stories of progress.
Definitely. It challenges teleological narratives, stories that see history as a straight line marching towards a specific, inevitable goal. The history of mathematics is so often presented like that, isn't it?
Yeah, like Egyptians did practical stuff, Greeks made it abstract and rigorous, then modern math perfected it, as if that was the only way it could possibly have gone.
But the Iqwaye system blows that narrative wide open. It serves as a powerful, real-world counterfactual.
How so?
It shows that the Pythagorean choice, and it was a choice, within their context, to abstract number from the physical world, to divorce it from the body and elevate it to a transcendent realm, that wasn't a necessary step for all human thought.
It was just one path taken.
Exactly. One specific, historically and culturally situated path. The Iqwaye demonstrate a completely different yet equally coherent choice to ground number firmly in the body, generating it through social and mythical practice.
The system is complex, it has iteration, cosmology, but no disembodied abstraction.
Right, which reveals that abstraction and transcendence, the hallmarks of the Greek path, aren't necessary features of all sophisticated numerical cosmologies. They are contingent features of the specific path the Greeks took.
So the Western logos is just one possible logos.
That's the implication. And the reason Pythagorean ideas became so influential, leading eventually to the dominance of Western mathematical thought, isn't necessarily because they were inherently more true in some absolute sense. It's due to a complex set of specific historical circumstances, the influence of Plato, the development of European science, colonialism, globalization.
So the Iqwaye show us a road not taken by the West.
A road not taken, exactly. And looking at it helps us see the contingency of the road we are on, the one we usually assume is the only road there is. And framing it this way really highlights a central conflict within the philosophy of mathematics itself. It's the ongoing debate between mathematical Platonism or realism and various forms of anti-realism, particularly social constructivism.
Okay, refresh me. Platonism is the Pythagorean idea. Numbers exist independently.
Essentially, yes. Mathematical Platonism holds that mathematical objects, numbers, sets, functions, etc., and truths exist objectively in an abstract realm completely independent of human minds, language, or social practices. We discover them, we don't invent them.
And social constructivism.
Social constructivism takes the opposite view. It argues that mathematics is a human invention, a social construction. It's fallible, it changes over time, it's deeply embedded in culture and history. Mathematical objects aren't out there. They're constituted by our shared practices, our language, our agreements.
So discovery versus invention.
That's the core tension. And Platonism faces a major challenge, often called the epistemological access problem.
Access problem.
Yeah. If mathematical objects truly exist in this abstract, non-spatial, non-temporal realm, completely separate from the physical world, how can physical beings like us, stuck in space and time, ever come to have knowledge of them? How do our brains make contact with this Platonic heaven?
How do we bridge that metaphysical gap? It's a tough question.
It's a very tough question for Platonists. But notice, the Iqwaye, viewed through a constructivist lens, face no such dilemma.
Why not?
Because for them, numbers aren't in some other realm. They are constructed right here, right now, from the tangible stuff of human culture. The body, gestures, language, myths, social interactions. There is no gap to bridge because numbers are already part of their lived, experiential world.
They're made, not found.
Exactly. So Mimica's work, which he explicitly frames as a critique of Western assumptions, ends up being this incredible ethnographic demonstration of a constructivist reality in action.
So the Iqwaye system isn't just interesting anthropology.
No, it's arguably a lived refutation of simple Platonism. It provides a powerful, real-world case study supporting a social constructivist understanding of what numbers are and how we know them.
Broader implications number as architecture of consciousness and cosmos.
Okay, so the differences run incredibly deep. It's not just about math theory. It seems like these different concepts of number actually shape, well, everything, like the architecture of reality itself.
That's a great way to put it. The fundamental divergence reveals something profound about how a mathematical framework, whether it's Pythagorean or Iqwaye, isn't just a passive mirror reflecting reality, it's an active organizing principle.
It provides the categories we use to understand the world.
Precisely. It provides the very architecture for apprehending and ordering reality. Think about the Pythagorean system. It was built on that primary opposition, the limit versus the unlimited, odd versus even, one versus many. This binary framework provided a comprehensive way to classify everything in existence.
And it wasn't just conceptual.
No, it was generative. Their geometry, seen as an extension of number, literally constructed the physical world from its basic components. Remember the point, monad, line, dyad, plane, triad, solid, tetrad.
Yeah, building dimensions.
And then they mapped these geometric forms directly onto the classical elements.
Yeah.
The cube for earth, the pyramid tetrahedron for fire, the octahedron for air, the icosahedron for water. They were building the material world from a numerical geometric foundation. Number was the absolute blueprint of creation for them.
Okay. And the Iqwaye architecture, how does that build a world?
It performs a similar world-building function, but using a radically different architecture. Their system, founded on the human body and its generative cycles, structures reality primarily in terms of social, procreative, and mythic relationships.
So relationships, not abstract forms.
Exactly. The logic of the body, the logic of kinship, is projected onto the entire cosmos. Just as their counting system generates higher-order units, persons, from the base units of fingers and toes, the cosmos itself is understood as this vast web of generative relationships.
Like the house posts named mother and father.
Yes, or the weaving lines representing joining knowledge. The fundamental organizing principles of their reality aren't abstract ratios, but concrete relationships, generation, reciprocity, social connection, mythic precedence.
So in both cases, the mathematics, whatever that means for each culture, provides the basic grammar for their physics and metaphysics.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. The Pythagoreans didn't just find harmony. Their number system, based on ratio, created a world defined by harmony and its opposite, dissonance. The Iqwaye don't just happen to live in families. Their number system, based on the body, projects the logic of embodiment and kinship onto the entire universe.
So number isn't just describing the world, it's a primary tool for structuring it cosmologically.
Absolutely. It dictates how a culture perceives the very fabric of existence. And this profound architectural difference, how each system structures reality, has equally profound consequences for consciousness itself. It shapes the very mode of consciousness for people living within that framework.
Different ways of being in the world?
Exactly. Adopting one framework over the other fosters fundamentally different ways of experiencing oneself and the world.
Okay, let's contrast them. What kind of consciousness does the Pythagorean system encourage?
A mind trained in that tradition learns to look through the messy, changing details of the physical world to find a hidden, perfect, abstract order underneath.
Seeing the form behind the phenomenon.
Precisely. It's a consciousness that cultivates and values abstraction, universality, the power of dispassionate logic and proof. Critically, it tends to operate by creating a separation between the observer and the observed, the mind and the world.
The detached observer.
Yes. That stance, the analytical gaze seeking timeless universal laws, becomes the ideal. And that, of course, is the very bedrock of what evolved into Western science. It's a consciousness that locates reality in the unchanging, the eternal, the abstract.
Okay, now contrast that with the Iqwaye consciousness.
A mind trained in the Iqwaye tradition learns to see the self not as separate, but as deeply and inextricably embedded within a dynamic web. A web of social, mythic, and cosmic relationships.
Connection rather than separation.
Yes, it's a consciousness that values participation, embodiment, and cyclical generation. Meaning isn't found in abstract laws out there, but in the concrete lived enactment of social and mythic truths in here, within the community and the cosmos.
So the observer isn't detached.
Not at all. Remember, for the Iqwaye, to count is to participate directly in the ongoing process of cosmic creation and procreation. There's no clean separation. This is a consciousness that finds reality in relationships, in process, in the perpetual cycles of generation and reciprocity.
It really drives home that point. These aren't just different ways of thinking about numbers.
No, they are fundamentally different ways of being. The Pythagorean path tends towards analytical detachment, fostering a worldview where reality is external, objective, and to be analyzed. The Iqwaye path tends towards relational participation, where reality is internal, embodied, relational, and continuously co-created.
So the choice of a mathematical framework, it's incredibly profound.
It's one of the most profound choices a culture can make, perhaps largely unconsciously over time, because it sets the very parameters for how its members experience themselves, their society, and the entire universe around them. It shapes the very texture of their reality. Outro.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together one last time. Today on AI History of Western Philosophy, we've really journeyed across a profound chasm, haven't we, between two radically different numerical cosmologies. On one side, the Pythagorean quest for transcendent abstract numbers, a system that, as we saw, became absolutely foundational for Western philosophy, science, and just our default way of thinking.
Right, the pursuit of the eternal forms.
And on the other side, the Iqwaye's reality concrete, embodied, deeply mythopoeic, where numbers are acts, generated from the human body, woven into the fabric of their cosmology and kinship.
A world structured by participation and relationship.
In exploring this contrast, I think the core insight is seeing how the Western mathematical tradition, with its focus on abstraction and transcendence, isn't some universal endpoint. It's a contingent, historical path.
One path among potentially many.
Yeah, and the Iqwaye system stands as this incredibly powerful counterfactual. It shows that a sophisticated, coherent numerical worldview can exist without relying on those same assumptions about abstraction and detachment.
It really underscores that world-building aspect of number concepts we discussed. They don't just describe worlds, they help create them.
Absolutely.
And the Iqwaye system, as documented and interpreted by Mimica reviewers, called his work complex, wide-ranging, provocative, irritating, unorthodox, and most stimulating. Which sounds about right.
Hey, yeah, it definitely makes you think.
It poses this enduring challenge to our ingrained Western intellectual traditions. It forces us, or should force us, to really reevaluate what we mean by mathematics, what we mean by rationality. Are they singular things, or are there multiple valid forms?
It shows that a powerful cosmology doesn't have to be built on detachment.
Exactly. It demonstrates powerfully that coherence can arise from embodiment, participation, and that seamless integration of logos and mythos that the West works so hard to separate.
Which raises a question for everyone listening, doesn't it?
It does. Does a meaningful understanding of the world require abstraction and detachment? Or can it thrive just as well, perhaps even more richly in some ways, on connection, participation, and seeing the rationale within the narrative within the rationale?
Yeah. The Iqwaye aren't some primitive past we evolved beyond.
Not at all. They represent a parallel present, a living testament to the diverse ways human consciousness can structure a world and find meaning within it.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I think this confrontation between the body and the monad, the immanent and the transcendent, is a profound lesson.
A lesson in what?
In intellectual humility, it encourages us, maybe compels us, to look beyond the horizons of our own familiar intellectual traditions, to genuinely engage with the complex, sometimes challenging, but often deeply insightful realities constructed by others.
To recognize our way isn't the only way. So maybe the next time you count on your fingers, pause for a second. Consider not just the quantity, but the entire universe you might be invoking with that simple act. What possibilities does your chosen numerical system, the one you inherited, open up for how you experience reality? And perhaps more interestingly, what possibilities might it close off? You've been listening to AI History of Western Philosophy.